In 1996, the most famous comic book company on Earth officially declared bankruptcy. They weren't just losing money. They were drowning in over $700 million of debt, firing hundreds of employees, and desperately selling off the movie rights to their most beloved characters just to keep the lights on. Spider-Man, the X-Men, the Fantastic Four, sold away to rival Hollywood studios for absolute pennies on the dollar. To the rest of the business world, Marvel was a dying relic of the past, a cautionary tale of corporate greed and catastrophic collapse. Yet today, that exact same company controls the single most profitable movie franchise in human history, generating over $30 billion at the global box office. This is the story of how Marvel went from absolute rock bottom to total world domination, and the insane, all-or-nothing gamble that saved everything. To understand how Marvel nearly destroyed itself, we have to look back at the chaotic comic book boom of the early 1990s. Back then, comics were no longer seen as cheap entertainment for kids. They were suddenly treated as valuable financial investments. Collectors were buying dozens of copies of the exact same issue, convinced they could sell them years later for a massive fortune. Seeing this sudden surge in demand, Marvel's corporate owners got greedy. They jacked up prices, printed millions of special collector's editions with shiny foil covers, and began aggressive corporate buyouts. For a few short years, money flooded through the doors, and the company felt completely invincible. But it was a dangerous artificial bubble. In 1993, that bubble violently burst. Realizing these mass-produced comics were actually worthless, millions of collectors stopped buying overnight. Sales plummeted by over 70% in a matter of months, leaving comic shops bankrupt across the country. Marvel's revenues collapsed, and their stock price crashed straight into the floor. Trapped under a mountain of debt exceeding $700 million, Marvel officially declared bankruptcy in December of 1996. A bitter, ugly war broke out in court among corporate billionaires, each fighting to tear the remaining pieces of the company apart. To stay alive during the bankruptcy proceedings, Marvel was forced to make a painful decision: sell off their crown jewels. They sold the movie rights of Spider-Man to Sony and the X-Men and Fantastic Four to 20th Century Fox. Hollywood studios made hundreds of millions of dollars at the box office with those movies, while Marvel only received a tiny, embarrassing fraction of the profits. By the mid-2000s, Marvel was tired of watching other companies make fortunes off their own ideas. They realized that if they wanted real success, they had to take the ultimate risk: make their own movies independently. There was just one massive problem. Marvel didn't have the cash to fund a major Hollywood motion picture. So in 2005, a visionary executive named Kevin Feige and his team made a terrifying deal with Wall Street investment bank Merrill Lynch. Marvel pledged the movie rights to their last remaining comic book characters, including Iron Man, Captain America, and Thor, as collateral for a $500 million loan. The terms of the contract were brutal and merciless. If their very first self-funded film bombed at the box office, the bank would legally seize the rights to every single character Marvel had left. Marvel wasn't just risking money. They were putting the entire existence of the company on the line. To make matters even riskier, they chose Iron Man as their flagship project, a character that the general public knew almost nothing about at the time. And instead of casting a safe, predictable Hollywood star, they hired Robert Downey Jr., an actor whose career had been derailed by severe personal struggles. On top of that, they decided to attempt something no studio had ever tried in history: connect every individual movie into one massive, shared cinematic universe. On May 2nd, 2008, Iron Man opened in theaters worldwide. The result was an absolute explosion. The movie was a global sensation, grossing over $580 million and instantly proving that Marvel's wild gamble had paid off. Just 1 year later, in 2009, seeing the unbelievable potential of this universe, the Walt Disney Company bought Marvel for $4 billion. That massive acquisition gave Kevin Feige the endless resources needed to build the Marvel Cinematic Universe into a multi-billion-dollar juggernaut. What started as a desperate fight for survival culminated in Avengers Endgame, becoming one of the highest-grossing movies of all time. The lesson of Marvel's comeback is one of the greatest stories in modern business history. When you lose control of your greatest assets, the only way to win is to stop playing by other people's rules. Marvel didn't survive by playing it safe. They survived because when everything was on the line, they bet everything on their own story.